Welcome to a special episode of Refining Rhetoric. I am your host, Robert Bortons, and today we have a special guest, CEO and President of Alliance Defending Freedom, Michael Farris. And unlike our normal episodes, we are bringing you this episode between two. I normally release every other week, and you'll actually get 3 episodes in 3 weeks because Alliance Defending Freedom was part of the Dobbs case. The Dobbs case is the abortion ban after children feel pain that Mississippi put in place. The results of that were leaked to the press. It was unprecedented. And Mike's going to share his insight on many things as well as comment on that case. So I think this is an awesome opportunity to hear from one of the defenders of that today. Just so you know, we had a little bit of sound issues with recording of Mike, and especially on my end. And so those have been rectified, but the sound might not be as clear as you normally expect from one of our podcasts, and I apologize for that. But without further ado, let's get started.
Classical Conversation Studios presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of my podcast, Refining Rhetoric, and today I'm excited to welcome Michael Farris to the show. Michael is the founding president of HSLDA, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and founding president of Patrick Henry College, a 4-year Christian college in Virginia. And today he continues to serve as chairman of the board of HSLDA and as chancellor emeritus of Patrick Henry. Michael has done a great deal of defending human rights, especially in the realm of free speech and the freedom of religion, and parental rights on educational choice, and of course, the sanctity of human life. He now serves as president and CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom. Mike has written and published over 15 books, including several novels. He is also a husband to his wife, Vicky, father of 10 children, and grandfather to many, many grandchildren. Mike, I am so grateful and honored to have you on today's episode. Thank you for joining me.
Robert, it is great to be with you, my friend.
I want to begin today's conversation by talking about the origins of HSLDA, which listeners who may not know is a global organization committed to defending the freedoms of homeschooling families. What were the circumstances around starting HSLDA?
Well, Robert, I was a homeschooling dad. My wife and I started homeschooling in the early 1980s in Washington State. And I had a regional reputation for being involved in Christian litigation issues, freedom-based issues. And the word kind of spread around quickly that, there's this Christian lawyer that's homeschooling. And so I started getting a lot of requests from the brand new homeschoolers for legal help. And I figured out pretty quickly that this was a really good way to go broke. Because when people say they want a Christian lawyer, what they really want is a free lawyer. And I came up with the idea of HSLDA as basically it's a teachers union for homeschoolers in a sense, I guess. And basically, if they come to fight one of us, the whole group will come in and defend together. And by doing it that way and having a really affordable membership fee, then it was a way to deliver consistently good legal help for a price that families could afford. And so that was the idea. That was in 1983. Mike Smith was the first guy I met, and I asked him if he would like to start HSLDA with me. And he was a lawyer in California at the time. We met at a homeschool conference in Sacramento, and he said it was a great idea. He wished he'd have thought of it. But he and I have been, in one way or another, working together on that for 39 years now. And so we've been together working for HSLDA. I'm not employed there currently, but I'm still the chairman of the board, and I'm still actively engaged in the activities of HSLDA.
Yeah, and I know Mike just announced that he's retiring, and we wish him the best. And you guys have been a true champion to homeschoolers and religious freedom. Parents nowadays may not know about that fight for freedom, and homeschooling wasn't even legal in all the states. So what are the consequences for parents if they don't choose to fight for their educational freedom?
Well, freedom doesn't last. We're not in a vacuum. There are people who are actively working to impose their worldview and philosophy on every child in this country. We have seen various iterations of that and various kinds of evidence of that. But what we see going on in the public schools with trying to impose critical race theory and other related theories, critical gender theory, and basically godless Marxism in many respects, it is not meant only for the kids in the public school. They fully intend to do that. And there's a group of legal scholars, Martha Albert Finneman at Emory, Kimberly Urraco at Northwestern, Catherine Harris at George Washington, Elizabeth Bartlett at Harvard, have all basically come out and said homeschooling should be either highly regulated or banned. And they want to highly regulate it, not so much for academic content, because they've pretty much conceded that homeschooling does a great job academically. Mm-hmm. But instead, they want to regulate its moral content, because they want their worldview forced upon every child in this country. And if we stand by, they will prevail. Now, the good news is we're not standing by, and our numbers are growing. And so, the one silver lining coming out of COVID is that the growth of homeschooling and its consequence, its freedom-based strength that grows from those numbers has improved in the last couple of years. So we're in a better position. They're in a worse position, but they will not give up, and we should not doubt for a second their aspirations and their access to power.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to learn more about HSLDA, you can listen to my 7th episode where I had Mike Donnelly on, who's Senior Counsel and Director of Global Outreach at HSLDA. Mike, you have not idly sat by in your life, and you helped found and start Patrick Henry College, which embraces a classical Christian liberal arts approach to collegiate education. And tell us a little bit more about why you started that and what it's accomplished since its inception.
Well, we opened the doors for Patrick Henry in the year 2000. So we're now finishing our 22nd year, I guess. And one of my granddaughters is going to graduate from Patrick Henry on Saturday. So that's
awesome.
Kind of coming full circle for me. Some of my kids have graduated from PHC, but we wanted a few things to be true when we started PHC. First of all, we wanted it to be unique. And in the combination of things, it was and is unique. First of all, we wanted it to be solidly biblical and have an uncompromising Christian worldview. Now, there are some good Christian colleges that would fit that description as well. Not as many as people think. I like the statement by J. Vernon McGee in a slightly different context. He would say there are believers, there are non-believers, and there are make-believers. Mm-hmm. That's true of colleges too. I would encourage people to be careful about make-believer colleges. But there are other good, solid, biblical-based colleges as well. We wanted the classical approach, and part of that is popularity in the homeschooling movement taught us that we had a lot to learn from that approach to education that was just thorough, it was sound, and with our founding fathers kind of theme at PHC, it fit because that's how the founders were educated. And so we just thought that we wanted them to have a comprehensive understanding of the world that we're in and the Christian worldview in that context. And there is nothing better than classical education to bring those things together. And so that's why we wanted that. And we also wanted the apprenticeship methodology to be prominent in the school so that the students would have approximately a year of real life experience in the job that they would be having. So, for example, if they're a government major, they've done a semester internship and then a deep research project for another semester. So what you miss out when you do that kind of an approach, you miss out on some of the electives, but really that underwater photography class probably isn't going to help you as much as spending time working on Capitol Hill or working at a World Magazine or for the Washington Times or for Fox News if you're a journalism major. And so we've wanted our students to get that year of experience as a part of their collegiate education. So we brought those things together, and PHC's done tremendously well. We are known for our government and our pre-law programs, also our strategic intelligence program, is very highly rated and very highly esteemed by the intelligence community. But our moot court program and our pre-law program is the best in the country. I mean, that's just objective fact. We've won 13 national championships in moot court, and no other college in the history of the league has ever won 2 besides us. And so our students are going to the very best colleges. 4 of our students have clerked for the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's a rare thing for a school this small. Mm-hmm. So we're just grateful that God's blessed us. And our students do well in all their various subjects. My kids that have gone to PhD, none of them have been government majors or gone to law school. They've been journalism and literature majors and other things. But so we've got good programs overall.
Yeah, I love seeing the moot court national champions and beating Harvard and Yale, and clerking for the Supreme Court, which we will be talking about here in a minute, because now you serve as president and CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom. And so for those of us who may not know much about it, what is ADF?
Alliance Defending Freedom is the world's largest Christian or conservative legal organization. We have about 400 employees. We have offices around the world. I'm recording this from nearby our office in Vienna, Austria. I just am coming away from our offices in New Delhi, India. But the bulk of our team is in the U.S., although we have about 85 people working on the international program. And we defend and stand up for 5 issues. We call them generational wins, that our goal is to win and turn our country and our world around on the areas of right to life, of religious freedom, freedom of speech, marriage and family. A lot of the sexuality issues of transgender sports and all that fall into that category, among other things. And then finally, parental rights. And so we work to win on those 5 areas. And in the U.S. context, all 5 of those areas involve requiring us to secure either a victory, reversing some prior bad decision at the Supreme Court, or a clarifying decision. So every one of those is focused on getting a victory out of the Supreme Court as a catalyst, not necessarily the final answer, but a key catalyst to those victories and to making America be a pro-life country and be a country that honors religious freedom. So I've been doing this for 28 years. Most of the people have heard of some of our cases. For example, Masterpiece Cake Shop case. We represented Jack Phillips, who, by the way, is a homeschool dad. And we won that case 7-2 in the Supreme Court. I was able to argue a pro-life free speech case in the Supreme Court in 2018, where California was trying to shut down pro-life clinics by requiring them to give pro-abortion messages to their patients. We won that case 5-4 in the Supreme Court, Justice Thomas writing a great opinion. We played a big role in the Dobbs case, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. And we have another case coming up in the Supreme Court this fall. In the last about 8 years, we've had 13 cases where we were counsel of record in the Supreme Court. We've won 12 of them. So wow. We've got a strong Supreme Court presence. But we win in other courts as well. We have about 100 cases going at a time right now. One international case that I'll highlight is that many people have probably heard about the member of parliament from Finland who was criminally prosecuted for tweeting a Bible verse, in fact, a photograph of a Bible verse relative to a gay rights parade. She was criticizing her own church's support of a gay rights parade. And basically, it's just a Bible verse, is all it was. 3 criminal charges, could have gone to jail for it. We helped defend her in the courts there in Finland, and she was found not guilty, but the government has appealed, and so that case is continuing to go on. But that gives an idea of what we're doing internationally as well.
So how is freedom of speech and really freedom of religion tied together, and why are you so passionate about both of those topics?
Well, the reason people want to curtail freedom of speech, like on Facebook or Twitter or if you're at a government school or public college or anything, is they don't agree with what you're saying. And they want to control the content. They want to control the worldview. The same thing is true in religious freedom. They want to stop people from either believing or at least not living out their faith. And so, frankly, religious freedom, and one of my books is on this, is the basis of all of our freedoms, because freedom of speech is to control your ideas. Freedom of assembly is to control getting together so you promote your ideas. It's the content. There's always been powerful forces from other worldviews that want to silence people who have a strong view of the Word of God. That's been the line of demarcation all along. It's a worldview battle, and it's an attempt to control and stop a biblical worldview. And so they're directly correlated, because at the bottom, it's about stopping you from saying what you believe, or believing what you believe, or practicing what you believe, or printing what you believe. All the First Amendment freedoms boil down to basic: what do you believe, and can you live it out, and can you say it, and can you spread it? Those are the issues that we face, and we're really in a really serious situation in our country, because there's a sizable portion of our population that doesn't believe in free speech anymore. It just is a concept. They openly say, we think that that's a white patriarchal concept, and we're not in support of free speech. We're in support of only supporting speech that we believe in. And that's not freedom, that's coercion, that's tyranny, and that's the battle that's in front of us.
Well, speaking of speech, someone leaked the Hobbs case verdict early, so it's unprecedented in my understanding. Has a case that's been passed around and not final ever been leaked like this before?
No, there have been some hints at final outcomes. A day or two, I guess Roe versus Wade, somebody leaked not the opinion, but just the fact that it was coming out, and they knew the basic direction the thing was going. Somebody knew that about a day or two before it was released, but never in the history of the Supreme Court has an actual opinion in the draft form. That these things never are final in their first draft, and so I wouldn't expect the final version to be identical to what we've already been able to see because of the leak. And it's somebody who thinks that the rule of law doesn't matter when it comes to abortion. And there's a principle that constitutional litigators understand all too well. It's called abortion distortion. And that means judges and others around the law don't follow the normal rules of law when it comes to abortion. And that started with the Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade. It was distorted. In fact, the companion case, Doe versus Bolton, years later, the woman in that case, whose real name is Sandra Cano, came to me and asked me to represent her to try to undo that, because the lawyers for the abortion industry had coaxed her to lie about her situation in order to get that decision before the Supreme Court. And so we tried to reopen that, and there were some complications in doing that, but nonetheless, there was a distortion from the beginning. They don't care if they lie, they don't care if they cheat, because their ultimate aim is to kill babies. If you're killing people, why is other kinds of lawlessness a surprise to anybody? But it's designed to try to tear down the ability of the court to issue the decision. They're hoping that somebody will chicken out in light of the controversy. I think it's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to steal the back of the people who are there. And in fact, it may get us an extra vote or so at the end of the day. So nothing's final until it's publicly and officially released. The votes can change. But I think that the left has been the loser in this, in most people's mind.
So right now, it seems like there's 5 Supreme Court justices that have signed onto it or expected to sign onto it. And then there's the 3 on the left, and then Chief Justice Roberts hasn't hinted which way he's going, and he may have the opportunity to write his own as well. Is that accurate?
That's what is indicated by the leak. I don't have any knowledge other than what the leak said, but yeah, that and frankly, that vote was pretty apparent to people who are experienced in Supreme Court watching by just listening to the oral argument. I mean, I listened to the oral argument. I came away and say it's going to be 5-1-3, and just the alignment. We couldn't have known who would write the opinion, but we could pick who the 5 were by just the interactions during oral argument. And that's not an exact science, but it's a pretty good science. And so, that part of it's not a surprise to really anybody. I mean, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all the morning after the argument carried articles predicting that Roe was probably going to be reversed. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, after listening to the arguments and reading the articles, it seemed like it was pretty obvious that it was going to either be severely damaged or completely reversed. What does this mean for the pro-life movement? It's been 50 years to get this abomination off of our books, but now we've got 50 states to work on. Is that accurate?
That's right. I mean, before Roe versus Wade was decided, every state could decide its own abortion policy. And that's where we're going back, right to exactly that space. Now, from an ADF perspective, and I know that the pro-life movement as a whole shares this view, we're not going to rest until every baby in this country is protected. That's the goal. Now, we're seeing a number of states moving quickly in the direction of saving lives already. I expect more. I think we'll get to about 10 to 15 good, solid pro-life states within the next 6 months after the decision's finally released. And I think with some good work in the next couple of years, we could get to about half the states. And then it starts getting harder after that. But I believe there's a path forward to get into the mid-30s. And when you get to the mid-30s, then you can start thinking about a constitutional amendment, because you need 38 states to ratify an amendment. So whether that comes through the Article 5 Convention of the States process, or whether that comes through Congress proposing the amendment, either way, you've got to have 38 states to ratify. But that's going to have to be the most likely way that we can protect every baby, because some states like New York, California, Massachusetts, and a few others, I don't care what happens, they're not going to vote pro-life in the reasonably predictable future. But we can get to 38. There's a path forward to 38 if we work hard. And I think one of the really important things is that we have got to show people that we really are going to continue our compassion. What our crisis pregnancy centers and other related ministries are doing is just phenomenally wonderful. And they're sending a message to pregnant moms: you don't have to do this alone. And it's not just the 9 months you don't have to do it alone. There's help for you all along the way, all the time you're raising your child. And so churches need to step up, and pro-lifers need to step up, and we continue to step up. We are stepping up, but the need's going to get greater. And so we need to continue that. And if we can continue to show that we're taking care of the needs of women and the needs of children, we can be a pro-life nation on a prolonged basis. If we don't, the fight's going to get a lot tougher.
Yeah, I know we donate a considerable amount of money to our local crisis pregnancy center, and I know Christian churches do that same thing, but I really agree that it's the church's responsibility to step up, and hopefully that we'll see that around the country this year as we get that opportunity. And I don't think that the leaker is going to achieve what they hope that they achieved. I agree with you that it's going to strengthen the backs of some of those Supreme Court justices, and maybe even push Chief Justice Roberts a little bit farther to the pro-life movement than they would like. So what other cases does ADF have in front of the Supreme Court right now? And then I believe there's a season of arguing, and then there's a season where the cases are released. So what are you seeing that's going to be released soon? And then what are you arguing now?
Well, the Dobbs we already talked about is the big case that we worked on that's going to be released sometime soon officially. But we're going to be arguing a major religious freedom / free speech case this fall. It's called 303 Creative, and 303, of course, is the area code for one of the area codes in Colorado. And so it's a Christian website designer, a young woman in Colorado, Lori, who is a fine, godly lady, and she's not willing to design websites for causes that violate her Christian worldview, including gay rights agendas and that sort of thing. Rather than sitting back and watching them continuing to pester people like Jack Phillips to death in Colorado, Lori took the initiative with our help and filed a preemptive lawsuit saying that your law that forces me to create messages for people that I don't agree with is compelled speech, and that's unconstitutional. And so we had a decision that was so bad in the 10th Circuit that it made it easy to get the Supreme Court to take it. Because that court said, yes, indeed, it is compelled speech, and too bad for you. And so the Supreme Court has taken this case. And so I think it's going to be the one that will finally settle once and for all what happens when there's a clash between free speech principles and gay rights principles. That should be a pretty easy way to settle it, because gay rights principles all come from statutes, Colorado civil rights statutes, federal statutes. Religious freedom and free speech come from the First Amendment. And the supremacy clause of the Constitution in Article 6 says when there's a conflict between the statute and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It should be really simple as that. Now, people will make it a lot more complicated than that, but at the bottom line, that's how it should be decided. And we're pretty hopeful that we will, even with the complications, win this case. Kristen Wagner, who's our general counsel of ADF, and she argued the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. She'll argue this one again. And so I know she's going to do a terrific job. So we'd ask people to be praying for a 303 creative case.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for your insight. I know we'll be praying for the Supreme Court justices. It's certainly an honor to work with you guys at ADF. And for those who may be interested in what's going on or want to support that effort financially, where should they go?
Well, our website's the best place. It's adflegal.org. And so we'd love to have their help and support. And we're the largest Christian organization out there, but we're about a little less than a third of the size of the ACLU. One of my goals, I don't know that I'm going to be at ADF long enough because I'm 70, and so I don't know how long I'll be there, but is to get as big or bigger than the ACLU. But we certainly need to grow, because I think our people believe in freedom as much as the left does, but we apparently have not joined together as much as the left has done. Of course, they've been at it a lot longer than we have. The ACLU is many decades older than ADF, but we're almost 30 years old, and for a Christian group, really quite large. But we need to be able to fight fire with fire and not let the left run over us. So I hope your people would come and stand up with us.
Well, yes, I hope so too. Everyone, I suggest if you have a giving plan that your family does, that you add Alliance Defending Freedom to that plan, because Mike's been a giant slayer in the Christian movement for decades, and we need to get him and his organizations the resources they needed to keep fighting on our behalf. So thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you, Robert.
Wow, what a great episode. So much insight from Michael Farris, the CEO and president of Alliance Defending Freedom. But this is not the end of this conversation. Tune in next Wednesday for our talk with Dr. Carol Swain. She'll talk about her experience with abortion. And the following 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about how we should address Roe v. Wade from a classical Christian perspective in our current events segment. So this is going to be a total of 4 episodes where we're addressing Roe v. Wade and what's going on in our country. So if you enjoyed this, please make sure you check out those future episodes, as well as share this episode with some of your friends. God bless and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.